Welcome back. We're still on Chapter 5. We're talking about libel, defenses, and privileges. And we are going through the defenses to libel. And that's going to bring us to the next defense, which is the fair report privilege. The fair report privilege, because keeping citizens informed about matters of public concern is sometimes more important than avoiding occasional damage to individual reputations. So, essentially, this is an oops defense. The fair report privilege allows journalists to rely upon information that's in official government documents or coming from government officials, even if that information is found out later to be false. So would qualify under defamation for the false part, but because of that reliance upon the government and the government records and the value of trusting in those records in order to get information out to the public, there exists this privilege. So, in order to qualify for this privilege, the journalist has to get this information from either a public record or a proceeding that is recognized as an official proceeding. The information has to fairly and accurately reflect what is in the public record or what was said during the official proceeding, and you have to cite the source. So the source of the statement should be clearly noted in the news report. Here's the thing. This privilege is not recognized in all jurisdictions. So you need to be aware of what your jurisdiction will recognize. Now, the textbook talks about this privilege as being a conditional privilege, and again, that is based on if the journalist meets those conditions that I just laid out. The textbook muddies the waters with this, and it starts talking about absolute privilege versus conditional privilege, and so I'm going to try and distinguish that just so that hopefully you won't be confused when you're reading that information. Conditional versus absolute privilege. Absolute privilege, that is a privilege for government actions and government actors. So they get a complete exemption from liability for speaking or if they publish any words that are defamatory that impact somebody else, as long as it's within the performance of their duties. And that's with the executive branch, that's with the legislative branch, that's with the judicial branch. As long as they are operating within an official capacity, they have this absolute privilege against being sued for defamation. As long as they're operating under their official capacity as a government official, they're protected. They're protected from defamation suits, libel, and slander. So here's the thing with that. Journalists are not government officials. So the protection that they get with the fair report privilege, that's conditional or it's qualified. Relying upon official government records or relying upon official government statements, that is when that privilege kicks in. So that, again, it has to be fair and accurate reporting in order for that to qualify. So, again, absolute, that is a government participant. Conditional, that goes to reporters. Just to be clear, the fair report privilege, conditional or qualified, goes for journalists. Source has to be an official public document or statement. You have to give proper attribution to the source. It has to be a fair and accurate portrayal of the information. You lose that privilege if you don't report fairly and accurately what was stated or what was documented, and you have to cite the source. There's an example in the text of one of those sidebar orange boxes. This is with TMZ back in 2014, and you can take a look at this yourself in the textbook. There was a press conference where TMZ reported on the official statements from the Attorney General talking about some woman who's involved with a drug and prostitution ring. turns out that the Attorney General was wrong. She sued, and she sued TMZ, and TMZ could rely upon the fair report privilege because even though the information in that press conference, what was disseminated, was wrong, they followed and they did what they were supposed to do, and so they were covered by the privilege. All right, so that's the basics of the fair reporting privilege, and we're going to move on to the next privilege.